Hey guys, and welcome to Signals from the Frontline, your every Wednesday live broadcast brought to you by Frontline Gaming. We are your hosts, Curie, the stats guru and coach of the WTC Canadian team, and I'm Seth the Mad Duck, your competitive correspondent. Curie, how you doing there, bud?
I'm doing pretty well. Well,
Yeah?
that's not true. I've had a cough for the last week that won't go away, but
But yeah, Kicker was out, and Curie kindly stepped into the role of the second chair this week. So excited to have him back. Curie, tell the folks what you've been up to.
I think it's been close to a year now since I've been on here.
It's been a minute.
It's been a hot minute. We've been busy. We've got our own show now.
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, getting ready for 10th. Been reading, trying to digest all of this wonderful information that we've been getting from Games Workshop and all of the terrifying ideas that come alongside it.
The drinking from the fire hose, if you will.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that many days, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm playing.
Well, I've since last week. I've my tournament army is finished. It's painted up. If producer extraordinary Nicky Dee can bring that up, you can see it's all packed up there in the nice little army tray. But it's now in my backpack.
Nice.
So just get to take it on the plane tomorrow. And then a last minute project. I've been working on this for a while, but I didn't think it was going to be ready in time for ACO. I actually had someone take my Seth the Mad Dog logo and turn it into a 3D sculpt, and I 3D printed that off and built that and painted that like today. So I'm going to have a bunch more of these to hand out in the future, but this is the first one off the 3D printer. So that is Seth as an orc, and he'll be accompanying me to ACO and glaring at all my opponents for me. So I was excited to finish him. Nick, what have you been up to?
Hey guys, and good evening, chat. So, been busy the last few days since we were last here on the show. I too have been building and painting, and I did finish my horrors, my pinks, my blues, my brimstones. So they are all set. They will be in my army for ACO. I'm ready to go, ready for the event, ready to see everybody, and we'll talk about it when we get into the tournament and event news. But looking forward to seeing everybody Thursday, starting at 4 p.m. for the meet and greet. So it should be great.
Yeah, it'd be a good time. There's been a little bit of news out of GW this week that I thought we would cover. There was a pre-order that went up this past weekend. I don't know if most folks knew about it, but it's this thing called the Leviathan. It's the starter box. Word is it's allocation is limited to a lot of stores, but I do know that FLG still has some. So if you're still looking for one, you can grab one there. I'm sorely tempted to pick up a NIDS half at some point, because side note, if folks that remember Shelby and the Shelby Grons, Shelby was selling that army, so I bought it back. So now I have Necrons. They should be here tomorrow. And so then I really was like, man, what Xenos armies am I missing? And I'm like, NIDS. And I'm like, look at them NIDS.
What about GSC?
Okay, well, they don't count. I don't like GSC, so they're not a Xenos army in my mind. The models just don't inspire me, but like the NID models, yeah.
Especially those new ones.
Oh yeah. So, but yeah, those pre-orders are up. They basically dumped 1 metric ton of data sheets on us in the last week. We had Tyranids, Marines, non-Codex compliant Marines, Chaos, and the rest of Imperium. And one can only extrapolate that tomorrow is Xenos. That's a lot of stuff to read through. They did show off the new Death Leaper model with the controversial death skirt, death cloak. I like it. I love the model. That was one of the ones that I'm like, I mean, that would be fun to paint. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll be honest though, chat. Like, we're gonna go through some of these data sheets, but as I said, a drinking from a fire hose. I have, every time I try to start sitting down and read through them, I kind of just like, there's just like a subtle that starts in the back of my brain, and I just can't consume it. So NID wise, I wasn't too like blown away by any one thing, which I guess is good. Curie, did you have any big thoughts on NIDs?
NIDs, I'm going to say it once, and I'm not going to say it again, just because everyone is, say the line, Jeremy. Yeah. It all depends on points. Yes. But from what it looks like, Tyranids look like they have a couple really interesting control builds. but they do seem to lack damage. And someone pointed out to me last night, I think it was, Tyranids feel very much like the army every other army will be in 6 months once they figured out balance.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think if that's the baseline that we balance to, from what I've gone through with that stuff, it seems pretty good. Now, we have to take an important tangent here. Crypt Shadow offered alternative naming schemes for Death Leaper's cloak. It's the butt cape or the flesh cape. Flesh cape sort of sounds like something you'd see on a Night Lord model. So I'm kind of going with butt cape. But yeah, so I'm sure Dean's in chat and he could tell us about everything that is amazing in NIDS. But yeah, overall, they're there. They're a good baseline. I'm excited for them. Marines, indirect everywhere. Oh my God, so much indirect, and the indirect's good, and they have ways to get around the negatives.
Indirect.
Look, I have one source of indirect. No, I have two if you count. 3 if you count Hunter Rig and Kill Rig as two separate, and then the rocket trucks.
3?
But they're good indirect. That's the problem. Mine are like D6 shots and hope you hit. Have fun, boys.
I won't disagree with you. Desolation Marines look just as strong, if not stronger, than the edition we're currently wrapping up. Yeah. And again, points notwithstanding, they could,
And then in the non-codex compliant section, I do know that Jeremy has a certain predilection to Dark Angels. How are those looking?
They are looking really fun. Although from what I've been looking at, it feels very much like
they're fine. They're fine. Don't worry about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. But yeah, I feel very much like they'll play better in Gladius than in the Unforgiven Detachment. Although the Unforgiven Detachment being all about battle shock makes you better is very funny. The idea of like throwing an ancient in a squad and it has a 4-up feel note, but the entire Terminator unit has a 4-up feel note pain when it's battle shocked. It's just like, that's a little scary.
Yeah, I was interested there. We talked about it last time because they kind of revealed their chapter mechanic before, but yeah, they definitely have gone more into the failing battle shock, although not great, is not the huge detriment to most armies. That for Dark Angels, they have a lot of mechanics to soften that blow. So that is interesting, an interesting design space.
Yeah.
So then there was these Blood Angels, which I hear our lovely Nicky Dee Cannon. He has some opinions on Blood Angels.
Of course I do. I love my Blood Angels deeply. Seth, Jeremy, I was thinking about, how am I feeling about Blood Angels right now? When we got their detachment bonus revealed from Warhammer Community, +1 strength, +1 attack, it seems so mediocre compared to the other things. But I'll take a brief tangent here, guys. You have seen the movie Anchorman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yep. Head nods. Chat. You've probably seen Anchorman. You know the Steve Carell character, Brick, the weather guy, in that, and just the scene. I love Lamp, right?
Yep. I love Lamp.
That is me, but I love Death Company. We had seen the Death Company Intercessor data sheet, and it looked real nice. We've seen now the Death Company with jump packs, some of the characters that can go in there that have some pretty good synergies with their rules. Jeremy, like you said, it's going to come down to points, but I am feeling like Death Company are real spicy. Brick from Anchorman, also known for famously exclaiming, "Why are we yelling?" And I feel like that's what my opponents are going to be wondering when they see me pushing all my Death Company across the table. It's going to be quite the angelic sight. I'm really looking forward to it, but it's going to come down to points. But I think Blood Angels players in general were actually very pleased with the data sheets. Jeremy, like you said, the Gladius detachment, that might be a better fit. Sanguinary Guard with Advance and Charge sounds real spicy. So I'm looking forward to testing it. We'll see what comes from it, and we'll see what actually gets to have some play.
Yeah, and it also gives you on-demand +1 to wound with the strat, so you kind of can pretend that you're old Blood Angels.
Now here's the real question. No reason, but are Sanguinary Guard and Dante any good?
Hard to say.
Yeah. I am hopeful, and I may have some things to share next week about Sanguinary Guard and Dante. Chat, you'll have to
I
wait a
said
week
no
for that.
reason. I said no reason.
Yeah, Dante looks he still looks pretty spicy. For what they get, the +1 strength and +1 attack part for them does seem like it can be very nice. But again, we'll find out about points. Which it's actually Seth, Jeremy, points. We find out about points this week, right? From Games
I
Workshop.
believe Warhammer Community mentioned on Sunday that we would be seeing points on Friday.
Yeah. So
I
soon.
this is what I've been told by someone else who reads Warhammer
GW,
Community better than I
listen
did.
to me. That's inconvenient for me because Friday we're playing and I can't look at points. I'm gonna have to table my opponents like in like 20 minutes so I can go read points. Or you could just like release them for me tomorrow so I could read them on the flight. That would be better. Release them for me tomorrow so I can read them on the flight, GW. Please.
Okay,
please,
so
just...
what you're asking for is we delay the Xenos to Friday and we get the points on Thursday instead.
No, just give me both of them. Give me both of them tomorrow. So while I'm just sitting in the airport and on that plane, I have some reading material. And then I will consume and digest. All right. Chaos also got a big old dump. I think they basically got everything. Like they're all out.
We have everything.
Let's take a moment of silence for the Death Guard players amongst us.
All right, that's long enough.
Thank you. Yeah, they did Death Guard dirty. They seem real bland. Comparatively though, Chaos Knights looking good, Chaos Space Marines looking good, Demons looking good. But Nicky Dee, this is ultimately your realm.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you feel?
I actually assembled a new display case this weekend, and I put my Death Guard models in there very gently and with lots of love because I think they're staying there for a while, guys. It pains me to say so.
You're like, I'll see you later, boys.
There are some things that I like. I mean, the Lord of Virulence looks pretty tasty, but he's got to be attached to a Terminator model or a Terminator unit, and they're just so slow. There's a lot of limitations. From what we've seen yet, of course, we're going to have to actually test out the game and play it. But I think Chaos Knights, they look really flavorful and strong. Some of the Discord chats that I'm in, Chaos Knight players seem very pleased. It seems like some of the bigger knights are viable, which you didn't see a lot of in 9th edition, particularly as of late. So I think that's exciting. Demons, I don't think, and Jeremy, I open to your interpretation and some of the players that you chat with. Demons, they don't look like they're going to be quite as tanky, but they're going to be more focused on really, playing the game, playing the missions, which is, I think, a little bit of a different strategy that we see from them. But what do you guys think about that?
I'd agree with that, Nick, because one of the big things that they did with Demons is they walked back the demonic save mechanic that they introduced with
that's a good thing
with the 9th edition codex. And honestly, it's probably for the best because it led to a lot of confusion, and not having an armor save for some models did matter. So now you have that granularity between the tougher models that can have like an armor save and then their invuln save from being demons. But they also walk back like the prevalence of 3-up invulns. Tzeentch used to be known for everything has a 3-up against shooting and then something else. They've gone back to more where it was an 8th, where Tzeentch has 4-up invulns, everything else is 5-up invulns. And they definitely feel less durable to shooting than they were before, like the army as a whole. At the same time, with the Bellicor ability to just make your army untargetable outside of 18 inches, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that is fairly strong. And yeah, I was kind of surprised to see Nurglings be OC 0.
Have we seen any of the other like swarm like? No, we haven't yet, because there was
Nids have scare right?
Ripper swarms.
And they're OC 0 as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Maybe that's the thing they're doing with swarms. All right.
Yeah, but they have like something that interacts. Like Nurglings in this case, they're infiltrators. They body block you, and if you near them, make you -1 to be hit in melee. And most notably, they're battle line. So if the points allow for it, you could run something silly like, what is it, 6 times 9, 54 Nurgling bases for 208 wounds of Nurglings.
I'm sure that'll be easy to get through, right?
I'm sorry, 216
no.
wounds of Nurglings.
Today they released Imperium, but importantly, they also released almost like a hot patch. I've been playing a lot of Diablo people, because when they released the non-Codex Marines, the Deathwatch had a strat for like what if Stern Guard auto-wounded infantry on 2s, and we were all like, oh my god, the mortal wounds, it'll delete everything in the game. And then GW was like, hey, yeah, we heard you, and no, that strat cannot be used on those guys anymore. So I'm interested to see, because they're definitely that being like literally they released Monday they released
Yep.
non-chapter Marines, and by Wednesday we had a not so fast update, so I'm intrigued, because there's definitely some things in like CSM that I'm worried about. Like I did have a test game against Possessed, and Jeremy was around during it, where I charged into a Chaos Army on the top of 2, and by the bottom of 2 I had received over 100 mortal wounds into my orcs, and it was scary.
It was fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
it was quite scary. And so seeing them do things like target, like we're like, hey, this strat with this unit can have an obscene amount of mortal wounds, and like 3 days later they're like, hey, well, hold on, we saw that too, now we've made a change. So it gives me some hope that some of the more obscene combos might be toned down. Now that being said,
this is the wonder of digital rules.
Yes,
where you can just go and say, oops, let's fix that. We are also in the kind of pre-release time of the edition, because the edition doesn't fully launch until Leviathan comes out on the 24th, right?
Yeah.
10 days from now.
In fact, I actually don't know that we know a street date for the physical cards. So yeah, it is all digital right now.
For now, it's 100% digital. And with that in mind, it does mean that they can go in and be like, let's tweak this, let's tweak that. Just these little adjustments, and make the game smoother, better, more responsive. And then we settle in for the long haul for like a couple months where they don't make any major changes while they see how it all plays out.
Yeah. Now, and I say that because, see, like we had some, Monday we had the doom and gloom of Deathwatch Stern Guard, and then yesterday was, man, Possessor seemed real good, and then today it didn't seem like there was many immediately broken combos that jumped out.
No. There was a funny combo, but we'll talk about that later. Admech and Sisters were, to me, didn't really seem super inspiring.
Yeah, there was some very pointed words from one Richard Siegler about basically requiring the Admech Codex to be rewritten.
I feel like there are some built in there. It's just one of the big things, and I've said this to other people over the last few weeks, is we're often looking at indexes and games from the 9th edition perspective, not the 10th edition perspective. So unless you've played like a lot of Tempest of War or that kind of mechanic, it's very different than building to the secondaries and primary mission that we play right now. So keeping that in mind is something that I will definitely advise anyone who is looking at it, and be like, always compare like and like. So yeah, when I look at Admech and I look at Sisters and then I look at Imperial Knights, I'm just like, I'm just going to take my Imperial Knights off the shelf, and the Admech will stay on the shelf for another year.
Yeah. All right. That is kind of all the new and crazy data sheet talk. I think as we all digest more about it, we'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth, particularly when my works come out. Well, let's get into event news. LVO tickets went on sale this weekend. They are selling fast. As of Sunday, AOS was 80% sold out. 40K was 70% sold out. Star Wars Legion was down to just a handful of tickets. MCP was over 50% sold out. So if you are on the fence about whether or not you want to go to LVO and you're undecided, grab your tickets now. FLG does have a robust refund policy on tickets, so grab them while you can. All the big high-end packages are already sold out, but just having an event ticket period is the only way you can guarantee you're going to get into your event. Kicker always tries to find more space and get more people in if he can, but there is eventually a hard limit on the number of bodies we can shove in a room. There were some questions about room block. Room block is not up yet. As soon as that is, we will let you know. But we're still working on some details, so we'll get that out usually in the next week or two. So just pay attention here, pay attention to the Facebook page. You'll see it when it comes out. We'll also put out a nice email about it, so grab that when you can. ACO news. Please make sure you have your ticket. You have a digital ticket, so you can just scan that when you show up at the table to register. You can pick up your swag at any point over the weekend. So if the line's long and you don't want to wait through it, you just want to scan and get out of there. That's a nice way to just kind of move through the process. If you're playing in the 40K champs or the AOS champs, make sure you check into BCP. That's pretty standard stuff, guys. For 2023, they did move the event. It is no longer on the second floor. It is on the first floor of the Harris Conference Center in the Wildwood Ballroom. So go to the first floor. That's nice because then we don't have to haul carts and trays up the stairs. So that makes everyone happy. This also makes it really easy access, kind of walking in and out. I think Kicker's got it somewhere in here, but there is going to be food on site all day, starting in the morning, going till 7 o'clock at night. And it is arguably the cheapest food at the resort. So check that out. Nice and easy. Tomorrow night, we're going to be having a meet and greet starting at 4. That's going to be pushing it for me, but I'll do my best to get there. It's with me and Kicker and Nicky Dee Cannon, Adam Solis, Mike Gandolfo, all going to be there hanging out. So come hang out and join us. We should have some opportunity to play some pickup games. So if you just want to crush Nick or be crushed by me, come join us over there. Just come meet the 30 Flash Kits in person. Anytime Friday at 8 until Sunday at 10. You can come by and pick up your gaming event swag. If you don't pick up your stuff usually by 10 o'clock on Sunday, that's when they open it up for people buying it. So you better make sure you get it. If you have your challenge coin, bring that along for a special perk. And if you have any questions, email our judge, Adam, and his email is headjudge@frontlinegaming.org. Nice and easy to remember. You'll also be able to find the judges on site by their nice yellow shirts. The black shirt guys like me and Kicker and Nicky Dee, we can point you to where things are at the event, but we can't answer big judge ruling questions like that. So just keep that in mind. Looking ahead to our next event, LSO, it is indeed a 10th edition event. Kicker and I will be there. Nicky Dee or D Cannon, are you making that one?
Nope, no, I will be missing that event, sadly.
Where will you be so I can arrange for a kidnapping?
I think on the beach, maybe. I gotta look at my calendar.
We're going to arrange for a kidnapping so you can be there because that's going to be the first 10th edition event for FLG.
That's true.
It's the back half of July. I think there's actually the week before that is the GW Tacoma event.
Tacoma is the 16th, so the 18th, yeah.
Yeah, so that works. That actually works out well. Give you a chance to see maybe what the meta is going to be before you make your decision. So that'll be cool. So keep that in mind. It'll be an exciting time. I also know that Stephen Box is there. I don't know if the internet saw this, but I am really pushing the narrative. Does everyone remember the SNL skit with Chip and Dale's with Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley? I am the Chris Farley to Stephen Box's Patrick Swayze. I really think we should be doing a Chip and Dale's routine at LSO. For some reason, he has not returned my messages about that particular plan. I can't figure out why.
Could it be because you suggested he played Death Guard at LSO?
Did I suggest that?
You did.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Stephen. Didn't mean to do that, but I talk a lot on mic. I don't always remember what I say. Let's get into our signal short. Nick, I believe you have a question for Jeremy tonight.
Yes, I do. I got this one. So, rules of the game are as follows. I'm going to present a question to one of our hosts. This time it's Jeremy, our guest. Jeremy, you have roughly 30 seconds to answer. So, Jeremy, are you ready to begin our little game?
Let's go.
All right. Jeremy, what is the biggest difference between a Canadian and American 40K event?
The players. And I'm gonna get some heat for this.
We need a rim shot.
I'm gonna get some heat for this, but I have played, judged, attended, watched a ton of events, both north and south of our lovely shared border, and Canadian players are just nicer. Like the stereotype actually.
Yeah, you just say Canadians are nicer. They don't have to be Canadian players.
Yeah, but Canadian players by and large are just nicer and easier to get along with and more agreeable at the table. American players, you guys want to win more than we do a lot of the time. We're there to have fun and make friends and usually drink beer.
Anything about poutine? I really thought there was going to be poutine involved.
No, sorry. I can only fit one
Maple
stereotype
syrup,
in the
maple
30
syrup,
second
poutine,
bit.
someone. All right, fine. All right. Well, let's get into our main segment. For folks that don't know, Jeremy, why don't you tell them a little bit about your stats background?
Sure. So I started collecting stats for competitive 40K back around February of 2022. Was helping out some friends who were running a podcast on the Best in Tabletop Network back then that was called Fight Club. Did it kind of as a one-off because I was curious to see how hard it would be. Started talking to the fellow who was also doing stats collection for that because they were doing it kind of as a stats-based show because no one else was covering 40K competitive stats. And from there, it was we kind of evolved. I found myself really enjoying it. We started talking more and more, and then from there it evolved. We eventually spun off into our own little thing. We are now Stat Check. You've probably heard of us. Seth has talked about us before.
Yep.
But yeah, our primary focus is on providing stats-driven competitive commentary. We also have a website where we host a usually up-to-date meta dashboard where you're able to basically click through and take a look at almost any kind of stat when it comes to how your faction or even specific sub-faction or flavor of army is doing. And then also on the side, I am the head coach for the WTC Team Canada. So the two kind of mesh into each other. As last year, when I was the coach for the team, then I was really leaning into a stats-based approach when it came to army selection and driving pairings for helping inform players when they weren't entirely sure about how a particular match might go.
All right. So with that illustrious stat background, I thought you did a nice show the other week where you guys did a really deep dive with all the stats brains on your show about kind of 9th edition review. But some of the things that kind of stuck out to me that I thought were worth kind of touching on again. How has the scene grown in terms of events and players across 9th edition?
So we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I've actually been talking about it quite a bit over the last little while because I felt like I was doing a lot more work than I had been doing a year ago. And I thought maybe it was just because I was doing more things. It turns out that you people really like playing Warhammer, and people really like running Warhammer events, and we love playing this game to the point where I have a graphic that I sent Nick, but it's okay if he can't pull it up. But basically showing so this is for a later topic, but this is showing how many events people have gone to over the last year. So your average person goes to like 1 or 2 events. But like if you look and I'm realizing I might be pointing the wrong way, but if you look, mirrored cameras are hard to figure out, folks. But if you look all the way at the right hand side of that image, I'm going to point to what I think is towards Seth. You can see that there's that 10 or more games played just over 1% of players have done that. Over the last 16 months since I started grabbing things. So this basically highlights like how many events someone has gone to over the last little while. So most people, 100% of people have played 1 or more events, obviously. 40% of people had played 2 or more events. And then you get down to that 1.7% at the end. We actually have some people that have played in more than 20 events over the last 16 months. You say TJ, and I actually was going to give him a special mention because there are 8 people that I have tracked, that I've been able to keep track of, that have played in 20 or more grand tournament or larger events since February of 2022. So that means that they've gone to an event about every 3 or 4 weeks, which is quite impressive. So we have Ed Watts, TJ Lanigan, Brenton Weiss, Michael Duff, Nathaniel George, James Pilkington, Manny Chima, and Marcus Hinson.
Damn.
Of special note, you already mentioned TJ. So TJ had, when I updated this graph last 2 weeks ago, attended 24 events. Well,
that means on a
the last 2 weekends, he's been to 2 more events. So he's now attended 26 events in the last 16 months.
He could have made it 27, but he did decide not to attend ACO this year. So
True.
he could have made it 27. 27 sounds a lot better than 26. I don't know about you, Gary.
It does, but yeah, I'm sure he'll find somewhere to crank that number up even higher.
Yep.
It's absolutely wild. But yeah, this sheet, this slide here that we pulled up is one of the ones I talk about when it comes to kind of like defining what it means by like a veteran player.
Mm-hmm.
In our data set on stat-trek.com, you can actually check it out. But basically, we say that someone's an experienced player once they've been to 2 or 3 GTs, and then they're a veteran if they've been to 4 or more GTs.
All right, so you're looking at like 15% of the meta are actually veterans.
Yeah, about 1 in 6 players.
Okay.
Which, if you think about it at your typical event, that's probably about right. Like you look at it and you had a 60-person event, 10 guys are the ones that you really look up to as those that really know what they're doing, have been around for a while, and like show up on a regular basis. And now, obviously, the longer that we continue to collect this data, we'll start to have to change that definition because, well, we've been collecting data for 16 months now. Originally, it was like 1 was a newcomer, and then like 2 to 3 was a veteran because that was all we had.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten to the point where, you have people with 26 or 27 events, it gets rather wild. Yeah. But yeah, and one of the challenges when it comes to breaking down, what a veteran player is, because you'll see this mentioned a lot on the website, is making sure that we keep our sample sizes large enough to be able to draw conclusions.
So in terms of player numbers, how has that changed in 9th edition?
So there should be a graph that is a 2-line graph in the spreadsheet in the presentation. Let me quickly, because I don't actually have this. This is how prepared I am. I don't have the slides open for this. So I'm relying on Nick to very quickly flip through them. I'm trying to open them for him right now. There we go. This is the one I want to talk about. So I was looking at players to date. So how many like player entries, like attendees, have we seen to GT or larger events? And I'll note that I define the GT kind of rather nebulously. We set a threshold on how we were going to categorize events when we first started out. And we're like 25 players, 5 rounds. That's a GT. Yeah, because you'll have some drops and whatnot, and then that's how many people have played at least one game of the event. Yeah,
and you had to draw the line somewhere, so that's as good a spot as any to me.
And then we basically doubled it for each one of the intervals after that. So like 50 players or more is a major, and then 100 plus players and at least 7 rounds is a super major. Because the idea is that you would usually come down to a single undefeated, even if you have a large number of players attending. Yeah. But yeah, so to date, so like last year in 2022, we saw almost 25,000 attendees at GT Plus events. And this isn't just Best Coast Pairings. This also includes things like mini headquarters from France or Turning Keeper in Germany and Poland, and down under pairings in Australia and New Zealand. So like I look everywhere. But yeah, so about 25,000 players in the last season, because I actually do track these by ITC seasons right now. So it was February 2022 to the end of LVO 2023. And then going from the week after LVO 2023 to today, same track, we are at over 10,000 attendees.
Which, just rough eyeballing it, is about 3,000 more than we were last year.
Yeah, it's about
at this time point.
It is a 40% increase in attendees year over year. Yeah, there was a point earlier in the year when we had a huge set of event spikes. And this is also why it's important to look at data over the long term, but where it was like 80 to 90% year over year growth, which is just wild. But yeah, like 40% more people attending events this year as opposed to last year. And one of the things that I also go ahead.
A great question that transitions us, I think, into your next slide quite well. Dean wants to know: is this unique players or is this like repeat players attending?
Next slide.
Yep.
Because this should be the unique players per year.
Now you did flip flop the color just to confuse the audience, but now yellow is 2023. Keep that in mind, folks.
Yeah, the one that cuts off is 2023. Yeah. But yeah, even year to date, we've had about 7,300 unique players, and at the same time in 2022, we were at about 5,300. So 2,000 more unique players in the same time frame.
Close to 35-40%.
Yeah, 38% year over year, which is, again, wild.
That's so close with my quick math.
You got real close there. I just want to throw some quick numbers out there because it's really interesting. In 2022, because this is where the breakdown between events is, people often wondered who's going to what, who's going to GTs, who's going to majors, who's going to the super majors.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, it was a roughly even split between GTs and majors. About just under 9,000 players attended GTs and just under 9,000 players attended majors, which meant that we had almost 44,000 games played at the GT level in 2022 and over 46,000 games played at the major level. And then you go to super majors, where 6,500 players played over 37,000 games at super major events. So that includes events like...
That's a lot of games.
Actually, I always forget which FLG events are 9 rounds, but like LVO is a perfect example of that.
LVO,
that would call
ACO,
ACO is
Cherokee. I think
any of the 3 dayers for
yeah.
Frontline Gamings would be those. And then, of course, all of the big UKTC events on the other side of the pond.
The GW events are...
Most of them are 8 rounds, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in 2023, so this is, we're only 4 months into the year, we've had 3,400 players play 16,000 games at the GT, but we've had 4,900 players play 25,000 games at the major level.
Wow.
And only 1,800 players playing 10,000 games at the super major level. So majors have exploded relative
only
to
10,000
GTs.
Games.
Yeah, only 10,000 games. It's a small amount.
Yeah.
My data set has something like 180,000 games in it now.
That's a lot of games. It's a lot of fun. So with all of those games, what did the meta look like kind of at the end of 9th year? Where were we?
We were all over the place. But the reality is that, how do I put this the best? Arcs kind of, show on the screen. This is a snapshot from the meta overview at statjust.com. You can select this and basically filter down by whatever meta you're looking at. This is actually a snapshot that I put in here of the whole data set that we have, all 16 months worth of data. So kind of breaking
all
it down.
Of 9th, not just arcs.
Well, not all of 9th, just NACMA, Nephilim, and arcs, because we didn't cover the GT 2021
all the data that you have collected at 9th.
Correct. Right. Everything since LVO 2022, which is a lot of time. And in that, it's really interesting to see how everything has kind of collapsed around that 45 to 55% zone that Games Workshop often talks about in their MetaWatch articles.
Yeah.
That they seem to have figured out how to do that. Less so in arcs than they did in Nephilim, but they, it's not horrible aside from Harlequin sitting at 60% for the entire edition.
Damn you, Harlequins. Damn
you. This is why they don't get to be their own book this year.
That's right. All right. Curie, you have the microphone. You've got the audience. If we're going into 10th edition and you could wish upon a star, what do you want TOs and players to do to help you gather more useful data and gather more data easily?
All right.
Because you just said it's getting bigger and harder.
It is getting bigger. It is getting harder. People have often asked how they can help me out. And the reality is, if someone wants to write a script that takes every single list at every single event and tells me what faction they played, don't care about the games, don't care about who they played, any of that's all very easy to get. But play me what faction they gave and what, and now that we have this new 10th edition building system that uses detachments as our sub-faction, tells me that, then that would be amazing. That's on the player side. But that's a general side. On the player side, list your faction accordingly in BCP. Please don't snowflake with silly non-existent chapters like Star Phantoms. I get it. You want to be cute, but it's just annoying for most of us. It's also annoying when you're at the event and you're like, I don't know what this guy's playing. When I get paired into you. And if I can't look at your list, I don't know what's going on. And then also make sure your list is readable at BCP. Most people are extremely good at this. There isn't a huge amount of issues that we've seen with that kind of thing. But the photo of a napkin uploaded to BCP is much rarer these days.
The good old days.
Yeah.
I can remember going to Nova once and they required paper lists that they literally stamped like, this is your official list.
Yeah. because they
and
had
that
reviewed it and it was
that was
approved.
scanned in to BCP.
Yep.
Which someone, God only knows who did that at the event. Which God bless
Having
them, 'cause-
tried to manually input like scanned list in BCP a couple weeks ago, it's not a pleasant task as the TO.
Yeah.
On the TO side, if you want to make my life a little bit easier, have a prominent link on the BCP page of your event or wherever you're running your event of to your player pack, because I want to be able to find it easily. I don't want to have to go through your Facebook group and then see the post where you posted the player pack, because I want to know what missions you played.
Yeah.
And on top of that, and this is something we're doing new for 10.
That's going to get more complicated. Oh.
Yeah, because we want to see those combos. We want to see what people are doing, what kind of spice is going out there.
Yeah.
And the last bit is list what terrain you were using in the player pack, because this is something that we want to add to our data set in 10th. Is, are you using the Frontline Gaming player place terrain? Are you using the Canadian player place terrain that I have been somewhat instrumental in pushing? Are you using UKTC layouts? Are you using WTC layouts? Are you using MATC layouts? Are you using XTC layouts? Whatever the local flavor is. Because we want to start being able to inform players on maybe this army's really good on player place, but bad on fixed placements.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that is definitely a thing that we have all seen with list creation, is like what events does it work at? But we haven't had the data. It was more, we're still going on gut feelings at that point versus actually having the data to say, no, these events, this is the better option for that army. So I like that.
Yeah.
Please
100%.
do that, TOs. That would make Jeremy happy. And then by making Jeremy happy, we get data that makes me happy. So you don't want to upset me. I will come and find you.
We'll all like us happy, Seth.
All right. Any final thoughts on the data, or are we going to get into our network news and our community spotlights?
No. I do want to give a bit of a shout out to the fact that 9th was an absolutely wild edition, full of highs and lows. I certainly don't miss Harlequins toying with that 80% win threshold for a couple weeks.
God, that when we were watching that weekend unfold, I can remember it was like, oh my God, we might break 80. We might break 80.
I was filling out the data. I was like, 79.5. We're safe. We're really not, but we're safe.
It was mighty close, folks. All right. Well, let's get on to the network news. This weekend, you have a boatload of streaming content coming at you from the affiliates. So War Games Live Joe is going to be at ACO. He's streaming the 40K, so you can check that out there. The Professional Casual group is going to be there. They're streaming MCP, so you can check them out. And Yavin Base will be doing Star Wars Legion, so they'll be streaming that, so you can check that on their Facebook page. So lots of great content to watch over the weekend and enjoy whatever of flavor of game that you're into right now, because I know some people are not super up on 40K right now. They're taking a break as the edition winds to its end. So check out those other game systems. Give those guys a watch. Nick, in the absence of our beloved Kicker, I believe you ran a community poll this week.
That I did. Fun fact, Kicker had his little drive up to, well, is still driving up to New Jersey, I think. But I got to have dinner.
No, he's not.
Oh,
he's
not.
camping with. We'll find out where he is.
We'll find out. We can't tease it. Yeah. But I got to have dinner with Kicker on Monday night here locally in DC. Had a great time. And I told him I would take the honors here and connected with Jeremy on, hey, what are we going to talk about for the community poll? So it was with Jeremy in mind that we asked, what's the most important stat for looking at Warhammer event results? So we put a couple of different options out there. I'll read them off real quick, and then we'll go to the breakdown. We included win rate, event winner or podium placements, faction representation, T-whip, which is effectively means when is your first round loss, or other. There wasn't really anybody that picked another one. But I'll go through some of the results here. And Jeremy, when we get to the end, you'll tell us who was right and what is the best stat to look at.
Who's right?
Yeah. So win rate was listed first, and 18% of people said that they look at this as the most important stat when they're looking at Warhammer event results. So we had we had four options, 5 actually with the other, but nobody selected that. So pretty good mix there. We go to event winner or podium placements. This was the lowest aside from other with only 9%. Faction representation, 18%, which means our big winner, the stat that most people are looking at as the most important with 54% of the vote, was T-whip or first round loss. So, Jeremy, you're the one who compiles the stats. You're the one that tells us what this all means. What is actually the best stat, and what is important for people to know and look at when they're preparing for an event, preparing their list, and getting their list so they can face the enemies that they're going to be facing on the tabletop?
Yeah, I would actually agree with the majority here. T-Weapon first round loss is a pretty good indicator for it. We track our own, which is 4-0 event starts, which is actually really fun to look at. So if you look at the number of times that a faction goes 4-0 at an event, it's usually a pretty good indicator of how strong that army is. On average, an army should be going 4-0 about 6% of the time. 1 divided by 2 divided by 2 is 1/16.
Yeah.
So it should be about 6%. Every now and then you will have armies that just blow that out of the water. So like, for example, right now, Gene Stealer cults are going 4-0 13% of the time, which is, twice as common as they should be. But they're failing to convert it into event wins, which means that they're hitting that ceiling and then blowing out. Same thing with World Eaters. World Eaters have like a 5% 4-0 start, but they have a 55% win rate. They have the third highest win rate of all of the factions right now. But they haven't been able to hit that 4-0 mark. And if you actually go to StatCheck and you look at their win event record distribution, it's actually very funny for the first 2 sections of ARCs. If you look at ARCs 1.0 and ARCs 1.1, they have this cliff that they fall off of at the 3-2-4-1 bracket, where they're much higher on that. Like, they have this bell curve that is skewed to one side, and then they just fall off this cliff, and they've won 4 events.
Do you think it's the players, or is there like a hard counter for them in the meta, you think?
It's tough to say. World Eaters is an army that can very easily, with good pilots, coin flip itself to a GT win, but that's a coin flip, which means you got to roll 5 in a row to make it go off, which is rare. Similarly, you don't have a lot of very talented players that are playing them on the regular. Good friend of mine, Anthony Vanella, just finished up his run at Kansas City last weekend, undefeated. He's, I think, 20 wins and 1 draw in competitive play with the World Eater, so he has not lost a single game. But there's very few people of that player caliber that are playing World Eaters on the regular.
Makes sense.
So it's kind of a bit of yes. The book is very strong. It has a lot of good tools. It has a lot of really good scoring. But I mean, there are some armies that it really struggles to deal with, Guard being one of them.
All right. Well, you guys talk about a stat that I didn't think you mentioned yet, but that's overrep.
Yes.
I think that's probably a important one to mention here.
Yeah, so I mean, overrep is very similar to T-Whip and first round loss in terms of looking at it from a relative perspective, because T-Whip, what you always end up looking for is looking at what the ratio between list percentage and tournaments in winning position percentages. And you come up with a ratio. 1 is where an army is balanced in theory, and once you hit like 2 or higher, an army is problematic in some way because they're just they're well exceeding their expected performance. Overrep works the exact same way. What we do is we look at the number of top 4s that an army is placing, and ratio that with the number of players that they have. And unsurprisingly, it correlates reasonably well with win rates. There are a couple where it really does not, though. Like Harlequins is a really good example of that. Harlequins have a below 1 overrep, which means that they're significantly underperforming. They're like a 0.5 overrep, which means they're only showing up in the top 4s half as often as they should. But they have a 48% win rate, so they should be, really close to that
more often. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, let's get into our community spotlight, and then we can wrap this one up for the night. Folks not posting a lot of stuff in terms of painting, so we went a different route this week. Our beloved Mike from FLG staff, he literally gets to drive terrain across the country. I think we gave him like a week break between BAO and then packing up and leaving for ACO. So he's been on the road I believe he got in today, so it took him 3 days to get from Vegas to Atlantic City. But he's there. He's been making a trek. Dean, who's in chat, showed off his nids. He's got some. What sea creature shall we make him this week? I think I'm going to make box jellyfish nids. I think is what I'm going to call them. These amazing box jellyfish nids. And then Kicker, as you said, is indeed not at ACO yet because he's camping in the woods with War Games Joe. They're about an hour away at a nice little RV park. But they'll be getting in tomorrow early morning and getting things rolling. So that's what they've been up to. That's Kicker's hobby progress. I wanted to point out in this picture, if you look closely, Joe's hand is very dark. Like it looks like he's been handling charcoal. So I wonder if they were doing some grilling. I'll have to find out.
Seth, you know what it is? I bet Joe spilled Nuln oil. That's what it was. They were painting. He spilled some Nuln oil. We've all been there, Joe. We feel your pain.
Yeah. So final thoughts for the night. Nicky Dee, you and I are going to ACO. We got to make predictions of how we're going to do.
Okay. Well, I'll give first things first. I'm going to predict a winner.
So, okay.
I'm predicting a winner for the event. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It was the guy who beat me at Maryland Open, Matt Laura.
Okay.
He was a top finisher a couple years ago at LVO. Just missed the Shadow Round this past year. Matt, he knows how to play on Frontline Gaming terrain. We know that. This is an event that's pretty relatively local for him. So I think he's got a pretty good sense on bringing the right list for what he's going to face. So I think Matt's going to be the winner. As much as it pains me to say that an elf player is going to win, I think it's the right choice. As for me, I'm hoping I'm bringing a demons list, very similar to what I ran at Maryland Open, dropping Rodigus for some more infantry. I'm shooting for 4 wins. That is my goal across Friday and Saturday. If I can do that, I will be a happy player. Ninth's been a good addition for me and for Chaos Demons, so I'm hoping to go out with some wins. But Seth, what about for you?
I'm taking the 30 flash gets, 15 Meganob, 6 truck list. Now, I personally think like 3 and 3 is where, goofy lists like this is going to go. I'm there to have fun this weekend and play some games. But unfortunately, last minute, I got challenged to win the whole event by co-host from StatCheck, Anthony Vanella. And in order for Anthony to inspire me to win the event with this silly list, he made me a promise that if I win the event with this list, he will get an orc tattoo. So I am now putting that out into the universe. Flash gets tattoo specifically. I'm putting that out in the universe so that if for those 3 games that I should lose, if my opponents just want to oops-a-daisies concede, just so we can all get Anthony a nice tattoo. I think everyone would agree that would be a great use for the weekend. And I just happen to win as a byproduct of that. I mean, great. But it's the Anthony gets a tattoo plan is what we're really on. So I don't think you don't disagree with that, right, Jeremy?
No, I like that idea.
All right.
I think we're good.
Jeremy, final thoughts for the night. Tell people where they can find you, all that fun stuff.
Sure thing. First, I want to say, Sean Naden, you better win best overall this weekend. Yeah. Because you have a gorgeous army.
And it's orcs. It's orcs.
I know, exactly. So you can find me at stat-check.com or youtube.com/statcheck. Check out our work. Check out everything we do. We are live every Tuesday night. Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, some god-awful time in Europe, and 3 p.m. Pacific time. Come check us out. Come hang out. We are slowly but surely descending into madness as we try to drink from the fire hose that is the 10th edition indexes. Hopefully in next week's episode, I'll come back from a weekend worth of playtesting, and we'll have a whole bunch of wild ideas riding around.
And you'll have to cover my event win, of course.
Of course. 100%. I will be hitting refresh on BCP constantly.
Okay, of course. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really thank Jeremy for coming on and filling in the second chair. It was great having you, bud. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Signals from the Frontline. Have a great week, and you will see Kicker, Nicky Dee, and myself at ACO.